Welcome to your deep dive into the source material. Because honestly, imagine losing your entire professional credential, like everything you have worked so incredibly hard for, just because of one cute photo with a clown on your personal Instagram.
Oh yeah, or because your boss's public relations director got, a little too enthusiastic in a local newspaper interview.
Right. It happens so fast. So today, our mission is unpacking BCBA Foundation's E5, which covers ethical public statements and social media.
Exactly.
Because we spend so much time focusing on clinical skills, right? Like writing the perfect behavior intervention plan or taking flawless data. But your professional presence as a behavior analyst, it extends way beyond the clinic walls.
It really does. And to guide you through this, we're looking at a stack of essential sources today. We've got the BACB Ethics Code for Behavior Analysts, specifically Section 5, which deals exclusively with responsibility in public statements. We're also pulling from Bailey and Birch's foundational text on ethics for behavior analysts. Plus, we have several real-world case scenarios and mock exam questions that, well, they reveal just how quickly a seemingly innocent online post can turn into a massive, credential-threatening nightmare.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we talk about what goes spectacularly wrong on the internet, we have to actually define what a public statement is.
Right.
Because I think the trap a lot of veterans fall into is assuming it just means, I don't know, standing at a podium or giving a televised interview on CNN.
And that is the exact misconception that gets professionals in trouble.
Oh, really?
Yeah. According to the code, the definition of a public statement is incredibly broad. I mean, yes, it includes media interviews, but it also includes your resume.
Wait, a resume?
Yes. Your curriculum vitae, brochures, directory listings, lectures, public presentations, paid or unpaid advertising, and literally all of your social media activity. The trap people fall into with code 5503 is failing to realize that a piece of paper you hand to one person in a job interview, your resume, that's a public statement.
That is wild.
So if you exaggerate a skill on that paper, you haven't just fibbed to a potential employer. You have actually violated the ethics code regarding truthfulness.
So basically, if you're putting information out there to inform an audience or provide a call to action, you're making a public statement.
Exact.
And the foundational rule, Code 5.03, revolves entirely around truthfulness. You just cannot exaggerate or mislead the public.
Right. And a massive red flag, one that Bailey and Birch specifically warn against in our sources, is claiming that applied behavior analysis can, quote, cure autism.
Oh, absolutely. Let's actually look at one of the case scenarios for this. We have this BCBA named Jenna, and she's being interviewed by a local newspaper about the effectiveness of ABA therapy.
Yeah.
And she's super eager to advocate for the field, you know? She wants to drum up support. So what's the danger there?
Well, the danger is the temptation to overstate the science. In Jenna's case, she has to accurately represent ABA based strictly on current scientific evidence. She's got to avoid overstating results. Or, and this is key, using the interview purely to promote her own private practice.
Right.
Because if she makes broad, sweeping statements without citing specific data like, I don't know, suggesting ABA will guarantee a child mainstreams into a typical classroom, she risks severely misleading the public.
It sounds like it's almost like a fitness trainer promising you'll look like a bodybuilder in exactly 2 weeks.
Yes, that's a great comparison.
It's marketing hype. But in our field, that hype isn't just a sleazy sales tactic, it's an actual ethics violation.
Exactly. Now, what's fascinating here is that it goes much deeper than just false advertising.
So
Code 5.01 mandates that in every single public statement, you must prioritize the rights of your clients over your own promotion.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. When a practitioner uses hype or guarantees a cure, they're damaging the integrity of the entire profession. Like, think about the psychological impact on the families.
Giving them false hope.
Right. You're setting vulnerable parents up for profound disappointment. When that promised cure doesn't happen, the family doesn't just lose faith in that one BCBA. They lose faith in the entire science of behavior analysis.
That underlying systemic damage is huge, which, well, it perfectly highlights why the next issue is so complex. Because it's one thing to control what comes out of your own mouth, right? You can personally choose not to use the word cure.
Right.
But what happens when someone else is holding the megaphone? We're moving from personal truthfulness to professional liability for other people's words.
Yeah, this is known as the proxy problem. And it's governed by Code 5.04.
Okay.
The code explicitly states that behavior analysts are responsible for public statements that promote their professional activities,
Yeah.
regardless of who actually creates or publishes those statements.
Wait, so marketers, employers, PR departments,
Yep.
if they speak for your clinic, they speak for you.
They do. Let's dissect the case study of Zara from our sources to kind of illustrate this.
Okay, let's hear it.
So, Zara holds an MBA, and she's the communications director for an ABA agency that is owned by BCBAs.
Okay.
In a media interview, Zara is quoted comparing autism spectrum disorder to cancer, and she fully endorses ABA as an assured cure.
Oh my gosh. Comparing it to cancer and promising a cure.
I know.
That is the ultimate hype nightmare. But I mean, from Zara's perspective, with an MBA, she's probably trained to find the most emotionally resonant hook, right? To drive engagement.
Exactly.
She probably thinks she's doing a great job marketing the clinic.
And that right there is the friction between business and behavioral science. Zara's marketing hook is an ethical disaster for the BCBAs who own that agency.
Yeah.
And it gets worse when the manipulation is intentional. Take the case of Harriet.
Okay. What happened with Harriet?
She arrives at her adult day program one morning to find stacks of a local newspaper in the waiting room. And her boss proudly announces that instead of buying a regular picture ad, she arranged with the editor to run a news story about the agency.
Oh, I see where this is going.
A story that explicitly bashes other local, specifically named ABA programs.
Wait, let's pause on that. You're telling a newly minted BCBA, like Harriet, to walk into the CEO's office and tell them their expensive, newly published PR campaign is an ethics violation.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
That is incredibly intimidating. I mean, if I'm a BCBA working at a clinic, how on earth can I control what the boss of the PR department says to a newspaper? I don't approve the marketing budget.
That is a very real, very terrifying position for a practitioner to be in.
Right.
But the ethical obligation under Code 5.04 requires that you must make a reasonable, documented effort to prevent and correct those deceptive statements.
Documented effort.
Yes, you aren't expected to magically control the CEO's mind, but you do have to be the reality referee.
The reality referee. I love that. So I actually have to push back against my boss knowing it might jeopardize my standing in the company.
Unfortunately, yes. If your company's website or PR team says, "We cure autism," you can't just shrug and say, "Well, marketing wrote that. It's above my pay grade."
You have to act.
You must document that you brought the ethics code to their attention, explained why the statement is deceptive and damaging to the field, and requested a change.
Keep the receipts, basically.
Exactly. Keep the receipts of your pushback, emails, meeting notes, memos. Because if you do that, you're protecting your credential, even if the company absolutely refuses to change the marketing.
Because the board needs to see that you didn't just silently endorse the deception.
Precisely.
Okay, keep the paper trail. That is highly actionable advice. But speaking of things that are incredibly hard to control, where the paper trail gets really messy, let's look at the ultimate Wild West.
Social media.
Social media. Because we just talked about PR departments going rogue, but social media is a platform literally designed for individuals to go rogue. This is where the lines between personal and professional blur so dangerously.
Oh, absolutely. Social media is where most violations of this code likely occur, simply because it's so accessible, instantaneous, and just casual.
Right.
The rules here, under codes 5.N and 5.1, are incredibly strict. Let's start with personal accounts.
Okay.
There is an absolute prohibition on publishing client information or digital content on your personal social media accounts.
None at all. None. Let's actually look at the clown photo case study from our sources, because I think it highlights how easily this happens.
It's a classic example.
Right. So we have this BCBA who attends a community event. She posts a photo on her personal Instagram of a client posing with a clown. Now, she intentionally leaves the client's name out of the caption. She just tags the event and the location. So in her mind, she's protecting confidentiality.
But she isn't.
No.
No. Even without a name, the distinct look of the client combined with the location tag and the nature of the event, well, it makes the client easily recognizable to other professionals, local parents, and community members.
Whoa.
It's a clear violation of privacy.
But here's where it gets really interesting. What if the parent of that child with the clown explicitly begged the BCBA to post the photo on her personal page? Like maybe the parent thought it was such a cute picture and wanted the BCBA's friends to see how much progress the child was making. Does parent consent override the rule?
No, it really doesn't.
Not at all.
The code strictly forbids client content on personal pages, regardless of whether a parent begs you to post it.
Okay.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, digital content requires heavy safeguarding because of modern risks that parents might not, fully appreciate in the moment.
Like what?
Well, we're talking about facial recognition software, identity theft, cyberbullying, unauthorized sharing, predatory behavior.
That's terrifying.
It is. And you simply cannot protect a client from those risks on a personal social media feed where your privacy settings might change on a whim or your friends might screenshot and share the image.
That makes total sense. I mean, the parent might just be thinking about a cute moment, but the BCBA has to think about the lifelong digital footprint of a vulnerable learner.
Exactly.
Okay, so personal pages are a hard no.
Right.
What about professional accounts, like a clinic's official Facebook page? Can they post photos of, like, a clinic spirit week?
For professional accounts, publishing is allowed, but you need 4 specific safeguards in place.
Okay, what?
First, informed consent from the client or stakeholder before publishing.
Makes sense.
Second, a clear disclaimer accompanying the post stating that consent was obtained and warning viewers not to capture or reuse the image.
Oh, wow. In the caption itself.
Yes. Third, you must use platform settings that actively reduce the potential for sharing, like turning off the share button if the platform allows it.
Right.
And fourth, you must actively monitor the account to correct any misuse of the information. So if someone leaves an inappropriate comment, you have to be there to delete it.
That is a lot of hoops to jump through. It's almost a full-time job just monitoring a clinic's Instagram.
It really is.
But let's pivot from photos to giving advice online, because I see this constantly.
Oh, the Facebook groups.
Yes. Our sources highlight the case of Valentina. So she's in an autism-themed Facebook group, and she sees a mother named Christy posting about her 2-year-old son's odd behaviors.
Okay.
Christy says she hasn't taken him to a pediatrician yet. She's just scared and looking for help. And immediately, people who identify themselves as BCBAs jump into the comments.
Of course they do.
They tell Christy her son is definitely autistic, and they start giving her specific intervention plans, like put that behavior on extinction.
Yeah, that scenario is a minefield of ethical violations.
But why is it so bad to just give a stressed mom a quick tip? Like they're just trying to help her out.
Because you have not assessed the client.
Ah.
Under Code 5.03, behavior analysts absolutely cannot provide specific advice related to a client's needs in a public forum.
So no digital diagnosing.
You cannot diagnose a child over Facebook, and you cannot write a behavior plan for a child you have never observed.
Right, because you don't know the function of the behavior.
Exactly. What if that BCBA tells the mom to put a head-banging behavior on extinction, but the behavior is actually medically maintained?
Oh, that would be terrible.
Or what if an extinction burst occurs and the child seriously injures themselves and the mother has absolutely no clinical support to guide her through it?
That's a huge liability.
It's not just unethical, it is physically dangerous. If you want to help, you can share general literature about behavior analysis or refer them to a directory to find a local behavior analyst.
But you cannot become their digital therapist.
You really can't.
Well, that desperation for help, that mom reaching out into the void of a Facebook group, it actually leads us right into the most heavily tested, ethically murky area on the exam.
The testimonials.
Yes, it's all about the power dynamics of the testimonial, governed by codes 5.07 through 5.09.
Testimonials are a massive trap because they exploit the exact vulnerability we just discussed. Let's start with current clients. Code 5.07 is very clear. Because of the possibility of undue influence and implicit coercion, behavior analysts do not solicit testimonials from current clients or stakeholders for use in advertisements to obtain new clients.
It's basically like your boss asking you to write a 5-star public review of their management style, right?
Yeah.
Like right before they decide on your yearly bonus.
Yes. The implicit coercion is huge.
Because the parent relies on you for their child's developmental progress. They might fear that if they refuse to write a glowing testimonial, their child will get worse therapy or lose their preferred schedule slot.
Or be assigned the most junior therapist on staff.
Right.
The power dynamic is entirely skewed. The client cannot freely say no.
But what happens when a client bypasses you entirely? Like, what if a parent goes on Yelp or Google and writes a review of your clinic entirely on their own?
Well, the sources outline a case with Matilda that addresses exactly this.
What does Matilda do?
So Matilda finds a scathing 1-star review of her clinic on a public website written by a current client's parent.
Oh, no.
And Matilda is furious because she feels the review is unfair. So she replies to the review online, publicly blaming the parent for missing sessions and not following the clinic's recommendations.
Which is a devastating breach of confidentiality.
Completely.
Right.
By replying and confirming that the parent receives services at her clinic, Matilda just violated the privacy of that family in a very public forum.
So you cannot defend yourself by weaponizing a client's clinical history online.
Never. But even if the review is positive, the rule remains restrictive. Unsolicited reviews on third-party websites where you cannot control the content, like Yelp, they're out of your hands.
Sure.
However, the BCBA cannot take that unsolicited positive review, screenshot it, and share it on their own marketing materials.
Okay, I understand protecting current clients because obviously I hold the keys to their treatment. But what about former clients?
That's a bit different.
Because if a client graduated from my clinic 2 years ago, I have no power over them anymore. Why can't I just email them and ask for a quote for my website?
You can solicit testimonials from former clients, but it's not as simple as just shooting off an email.
What's the catch?
There are massive caveats. You must first critically consider if they are likely to re-enter services with you.
Oh, because autism services are often cyclical.
Exactly. Families leave and come back. If there's a chance they will return, the power dynamic still exists, and you shouldn't ask.
That makes sense.
And if you do use a former client's testimonial, you must identify it publicly as solicited or unsolicited. You must state your relationship to the author.
Wow, so many rules.
You must warn them of the privacy risks of putting their story out there for the world to see, and this is crucial. You must explicitly tell them they have the right to rescind the testimonial at any time.
So what does this all mean for the field as a whole? Like, why are we so incredibly strict about testimonials compared to, say, a chiropractor or a weight loss clinic who plaster their websites with before and after stories?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, using testimonials heavily makes applied behavior analysis look like a non-evidence-based fad treatment. Pseudoscience relies on anecdotes and glowing emotional stories because they don't have hard empirical data.
Right, but we do.
Exactly. Behavior analysis is a science. When a behavior analytic company plasters their website with emotional testimonials, it blurs the line between evidence-based practice and snake oil in the eyes of the consumer, lawmakers, and insurance companies.
It reduces a hard, data-backed science to a wellness fad.
Precisely.
That is a fascinating perspective. We rely on data, not Yelp reviews.
Yes.
Although the sources do note one specific exception under Code 5.09, you can use testimonials for non-advertising purposes.
Right.
So things like fundraising, grant applications, or just the general dissemination of information about ABA as long as it aligns with applicable laws.
The key distinction there is the intent of the statement. Are you trying to lure in new paying clients to boost your private practice revenue? Or are you trying to secure a state grant to keep a nonprofit community clinic open?
Right.
The ethical rules shift based on whether the intent is commercial advertising or institutional survival.
Okay, speaking of keeping the science pure and distinct from fads, let's round out our public presence by looking at how we advertise the actual services we provide and how we respect the intellectual property of the field.
Yes.
Which brings us to staying in your lane, codes 5.05 and 5.06.
Let's tackle non-behavioral services first.
Yeah.
Code 5.06 states that behavior analysts do not advertise non-behavioral services as behavioral services.
Right. So if you're a BCBA, but you're also, I don't know, a certified yoga instructor, or you practice Reiki healing, you cannot blend that into your ABA practice and pretend it's all part of behavior analysis.
Absolutely not. If you provide non-behavioral services, they must be clearly distinguished from your behavioral services.
Okay.
And you must use the exact BACB disclaimer. It reads, "These interventions are not behavioral in nature and are not covered by my BACB certification."
Wait, literally the exact wording.
The exact wording.
Do they really have to slap that exact sentence on every single flyer, website page, and brochure?
Yes. The separation must be crystal clear to the consumer. If an ABA clinic promises Reiki healing alongside discrete trial training, a vulnerable parent cannot tell where the science ends and the mysticism begins.
Because they're just looking for help.
Right. Confusing the public about what is and isn't ABA actively damages the scientific credibility of the field.
Makes sense.
The consumer needs to know exactly when they are receiving an evidence-based behavioral intervention and when they are receiving something else entirely.
It all comes back to protecting the consumer from deception.
Exactly.
And protecting the field's intellectual property is just as important, right? Code 5.05 requires us to comply with intellectual property laws. You cannot unlawfully obtain or disclose proprietary information.
Right. Our sources give a great, highly relevant example of this regarding exam preparation.
Oh, what's the case?
So 3 BCBAs, Thomas, Cynthia, and Craig, they work for an agency. And Thomas and Cynthia run study groups for the junior staff who are taking the BCBA exam.
Okay, that sounds nice of them.
Well, they decide to monetize this, so they start their own exam prep company called BCBA Exam Success.
Okay.
On their new website, they slap the trademarked BACB logo on the front page to look official.
Oh, wow. You cannot do that.
And it gets worse. They use testimonials from agency staff who participated in their free work study groups, pretending those staff actually bought their new product.
Unbelievable. Trademark infringement with the logo and completely deceptive testimonials.
Yeah.
They're literally exploiting their colleagues and lying to future customers. That is a very quick way to get a notice of alleged violation filed against you.
Very quick.
Because you cannot steal study prep company materials, you cannot misuse trademarks to imply board endorsement, and you cannot claim work that isn't yours.
This raises an important question for anyone listening who might be preparing for the exam right now. How do you ethically navigate studying and sharing resources?
Right.
You have to ensure that whatever materials you use are legitimately acquired. You never share proprietary mock exams, paid study guides, or course materials without explicit permission from the creator.
Because intellectual property theft is a serious ethical violation that demonstrates a huge lack of professional integrity.
Exactly.
Which honestly brings us to a perfect summary of today's deep dive. Your online and public life as a behavior analyst is governed by incredibly strict rules.
Yes, it is.
And every single one of those rules, from truthfulness in your resume to safeguarding intellectual property, it's designed for two reasons: to protect the client's privacy and to fiercely protect the profession's scientific integrity.
That's beautifully said. Whether you are trying to dodge a marketer's hype by being the reality referee or making sure you keep recognizable clients off your personal Instagram feed.
Or navigating that incredibly complex testimonial trap.
Right. The priority is always the client, never your own promotion.
You just have to protect the vulnerable. And real quick, to you, our listener, to access study guides, tools, and ABA resources to actually help you master these concepts, ethically, of course, you can check out the link at stan.store therapy services. Highly exam and clinical practice. Because as we have seen today, the digital pitfalls, they are everywhere.
They really are. And I want to leave you with a final thought to kind of mull over.
Okay.
Imagine your digital footprint exactly 10 years from now. If a future client or that client's child Googled your name, what would they find?
Oh, that's a good question.
Would they see a professional who fiercely protected the dignity and privacy of their learners? Or would they see someone who traded confidentiality for likes, shared unverified advice in Facebook groups, and leaned on manipulative marketing clicks?
Wow.
The internet is forever, and so is your ethical obligation.
It really makes you rethink every time you hit the share button. So take a hard look at your own digital footprint today. Does it show a clean, ethical structure? Or a messy, blurry ethical violation just waiting to happen? It is entirely up to you. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the source material. Catch you next time.